Hello. Did you know that leading supermarkets are gearing up to rip us off? You could end up paying more for the same item than the shopper standing next to you. All will be explained. Plus, we're going to look at this horrible feeling of unrest permeating through the country at the moment, and we'll have something to say about a new Met Police policy that will hopefully be taken up by every police force. Welcome to a new edition of Grey Matters Extra. Hello and welcome to GMX, where we look at some of the wider issues that are in the news at the moment. And yes, it is a bit cold up here at the top of Grey Matters Towers in our little studio, hence this. I apologise. Now, have you heard of DSLs? They are digital shelf labels, and many supermarkets are now rolling them out, including Tesco, Aldi, Lidl and Asda. And they are replacing the paper price labels on the shelves, and the supermarket's claim is to streamline price changes and make it cheaper, quicker and easier to tackle them. However, Clare from the Conscientious Currency, this is so difficult to say in one sentence, the Conscientious Currency Substack has other ideas, because if these dynamic shelves get paired with the coming digital ID, as we think it will be, then that same loaf of bread can cost you £3.20 while your neighbour could pay £1.89. Worse, you may get nothing at all if your carbon score is red flagged. Now, this all sounds a bit pie in the sky and conspiracy, doesn't it? But it's not. How's it going to work? Well, according to Clare, dynamic pricing is a strategy where the cost of a product or service fluctuates based on real-time factors such as demand, time of day, weather, or consumer behaviour. It's commonly used in industries like travel, and it allows businesses to maximise profits by adjusting prices to match market conditions. Your airline tickets are priced this way, and so now it's going to go from like Ryanair on one hand to your food prices on the other. Now, these DSLs are updated instantly via a centralised system, enabling retailers to change prices across thousands of items in seconds. Sounds a great idea, and it will no doubt help the stores. But the monster in the room is that they could be used to personalise your shopping to you based on identity-linked data. Link it to the government's digital ID and you could find yourself paying more or less than your neighbour. Retailers could tailor prices based on individual consumer profiles such as loyalty status, income level or past purchase behaviour, and that could influence the price you actually pay, and that naturally will and should raise ethical concerns about fairness and transparency. Now, lots of commentators have talked about how the government would control your spending and prevent you from buying certain products with this digital ID. I've commented on it too, but never really thought how it could be achieved. But I think this would be it. Linking a digital ID to health, carbon footprint or financial data and feeding it back to your DSL, your supermarket purchases could theoretically allow systems to restrict your purchases, perhaps say of sugary foods, red meat or alcohol, and the store wouldn't need access to your data. It would get all that actioned at the other end by Big Brother. Now, as Clare says, if pricing or access is determined by an opaque algorithm, consumers will face price discrimination without recourse or understanding why they're being charged more or being denied a product. And she goes on to say that we are witnessing the emergence of a landscape that's shaped by the convergence of state and corporate power, and it's rolling out before our eyes. But you know, as consumers, we're not totally helpless. We don't have to sit back and let this all happen. The most effective way to challenge this emerging, what should we call it, corporate overreach, is to hit them where it hurts, and that's their profits. refusing to shop at stores that implement DSLs, as inconvenient as it may be, would send a clear message. Instead, we would redirect our spending towards local businesses, independent retailers, farm shops whenever possible, and use cash to pay whenever possible. Supporting community-based commerce not only weakens the corporate dominance, but it also strengthens local resilience. And of course, you could write directly to the retailers to express your concern or opposition to all this surveillance. I mean, it's a powerful act when you do that, especially when it's combined with data subject access requests, DSARs, and they force companies to disclose what personal data they hold about you and how it's used. Now, these legal tools exist for a reason, and when used collectively, they can create friction in systems designed to operate totally without scrutiny. Now, my thanks again to Clare Wills-Harrison for bringing this to our attention. Give it some thought, guys. Look back over this video again, see again what I said, because sometimes it takes 2, maybe 3 listens for the actual implications to set in. Next, there seems to be a general feeling of unrest amongst the population. Have you felt it? We've seen opposing factions demonstrating on all matters, ranging conflicts abroad to gender ideologies. We've seen clear instances of two-tier policing, where the few are allowed to behave as they want and the majority are held to account for opposing them. To be honest, many Britons feel as if they and our way of life are under attack. Free speech, it seems, is protected, provided it doesn't oppose the government's policies, ideologies and sympathies. And grooming gangs aside, we're getting report after report after report in the media about attacks on young girls. Once this was so very rare an occurrence. In most cases, those attacks and assaults were committed by someone known to the victims. But now it seems that's no longer the case. Now, I'm not going to speculate here on who is responsible, because we all have our own opinions, and also because the YouTube algorithms could shove this video out the door if I did. But the fact remains that these attacks have escalated off the scale this year. I'll leave you to draw your own conclusions. And then we find that some sections of the community, and this has been going on for a long time, rather than integrate, are trying to force the way of life, customs and rules from their particular ethnic backgrounds onto the population in general. Now, can you imagine us trying that in, say, Dubai? If you think for 1 minute that young Brits abroad will be able to behave there the way they do, say, in Manchester city centre on a Saturday night, you'd be very wrong. Do you remember that young couple imprisoned a couple of years ago for making out on a beach? It doesn't matter if you were born here or if you moved here. You should abide by our laws, be tolerant of our religions as we should be of yours, and not expect us to change our customs and traditions to fit around you. And everyone says it, but no one has the inclination to enforce it, like they do in places like Dubai. And of course, we're also competing against councils who are happy to cancel our traditions out of fear. Fear of what? Well, I'll leave that to your imagination too, but you know what I'm talking about. And now for some good news. Apparently the Met Police have decided not to pursue non-crime hate incidents anymore, which is fantastic. I just hope that more of the country's 43 police forces follow suit. How can you possibly be arrested and dealt with for something that isn't a crime? It's the most ridiculous thing ever. However, I don't know if this decision not to do the non-crime hate crimes, which I'm sure they've been told not to do in the past, but I don't know if these also include the so-called offensive tweets. I mean, any sane person knows that offence is very subjective. I mean, if someone walked out of a Jimmy Carr show because they were offended, A, they probably wouldn't be the first, and B, Can you imagine if they reported him to the police? Now, if that were to happen, I could virtually guarantee that the police would look at it and say, well, hang on, one person out of an audience of 2,000 was offended. The rest of the 2,000 found it funny and were not offended. So no, we're not going to follow this up. Forget it. Quite rightly too, because it would be plainly ridiculous. However, if Jimmy posted the same thing on Twitter and one person reported it as being offensive, I believe the whole police perspective would be turned on its head. I reckon their response then would be, well, okay, only one person has been offended and has reported this, but it's gone out to thousands more people who might also be offended, so we'll nick him. That's what I think. It's very easy for people to be offended online, isn't it, and complain about racism or transphobia or homophobia, which incidentally, a phobia, as you probably know, is a fear. So it's a totally incorrect term. But considering that homo is Latin for human, kind of makes it even more a ridiculous term. I'm human phobic. Well, I'm not, of course, but, Anyway, I digress. YouTube, TikTok and Instagram are full of videos showing police officers arresting people for causing offence online. I imagine they've been told to do so by senior officers, most of whom are probably fast-track university buffoons who have had little or no frontline experience. And when police forces are all complaining about being under-resourced in terms of money and boots on the ground, these types of arrests are totally unwarranted and farcical, although perhaps not for the people who've been arrested. And there was another incident of police stupidity the other day. I watched this video, I can't remember who posted it up now, it might have been the Black Belt Barrister. But this guy had bought a rail ticket online but hadn't had the time to print it out. He was stopped at the barrier and the police were called. He was close to a ticket machine that could have printed out the ticket for him, but they refused to let him. So despite knowing he'd bought a ticket, they still arrested him and took him to the police station, where he proved to the custody officer he'd paid for a ticket and was immediately de-arrested, and then they took him to that same ticket machine to get his ticket printed. It's totally ridiculous. His argument was that he may have failed to comply with policy by not having a printed ticket, but policy is not the law. And he quite rightly said that he had not committed any offence. And he was able to prove he wasn't trying to defraud the railway, which would have been an offence. And then, quite astutely, he said, what if that policy had decreed that all passengers must stand on one leg for the duration of their journeys? The police would want to know if people failed to comply. It should be the same with this. Absolutely crazy. I don't know. I despair sometimes of the way this country's going. I just hope we get someone in power who sees through all this and makes some big changes. What do you think of all this? 3 stories today that you may want to comment on. The pricing structure that could be affected by digital ID. The unrest in the country at the moment, it feels like things are brewing and it doesn't feel nice to me. Be nice if everything could calm down a bit. And then, of course, good news with the police dumping the non-crime hate crime, at least the Met Police. Let's hope other forces take this on board and do the same. So thank you very much for joining us, and thank you for those that have been donating a bit of money this way through the super thanks. Very unexpected, but very grateful for it as well. Thank you. Do subscribe if you haven't already. Give the video a big thumbs up if you liked it, and I'll see you in the comments section. Until the next time on Grey Matters, is bye for now.